So here we are at my 78 Ford truck, and the last time I went, took it out wheeling, the door started sagging a little bit, probably flexed the body a little bit more than it should have been. And I diagnosed it to this support right here, so I reinforced that with some 14 gauge, just really went in there and heavy duty it. Then I decided to peel back the carpet and see how far the rust went. I knew it went in there a little ways, but I didn't know. I was planning on just right there. It goes in there a lot of ways. I mean, all the way through, Flintstone car. So I don't have floor plans for this. I'm not going to buy floor pans for this. My ultimate goal behind this was actually to put a new cab on it, because this cab was so bad when I bought it almost 20 years ago, and it's just got worse and worse. So I'm just going to throw some new floor pans in. The biggest issue is, you can see right here, somebody else has done a floor pan, but all they did was just throw something over the top. It didn't cut out any of the old stuff, and they actually carpet glued down the carpet, which held even more moisture, so everything else is rotted out even more without having the carpet being able to kind of move around and breathe a little bit. And this is household carpet they threw in. It's like Berber. It's hideous, but it was in there when I got it. No big deal. So I'm gonna start cutting this stuff out, and let's make a panel. I just cut off a couple little tack welds, so let's pull out the patch panel. This is a patch panel somebody put in at some point, and they made it worse. The annoying thing, this is all carpet glue. I don't know if you can see this. You don't put carpet glue. That just holds the carpet and doesn't breathe. Makes it even worse. So you can see the panel came all the way back here and overlapped this entire thing. Right here I see a lot of surface rust right here. The underside feels firm. So like the rust right here is all just because they've sandwiched so much metal and given such an area. So this entire thing, I bet you the rust was nowhere near as bad as this. I bet you there's probably a hole right here and a little bit of a thin spot up in here where they normally rust out. And they just threw everything on, just covered it. And so water, dirt, mud got up in here, salt, and just sat here. And so it never had a chance to dry out. And weeped through, and the carpet didn't help, and then finally rusted through and just sat there, and I bet you it migrated all over to there. So if you're going to do this, if you're going to put a huge patch, cut out all the bad. I'm going to cut out as much bad as I can and reinforce. This is the cab mount right here. This supports the whole cab. I have the cab jacked up, but it doesn't look like it's compromised at all. It's still holding. There's still enough surface area to hold everything, but we're going to start cutting out this junk. It's all cut out. Now just time to make a patch panel that fits in there. That's the cab mount, and the bottom half of it's just kind of rusted out, so I'll probably just chop off the bottom of that, but that's really no big deal. Thanks to a rooftop commercial AC unit for the 18 gauge sheet metal, we got the piece cut out and kind of drawn on there where I'm going to have some of my ridges and dents and everything else, and where my bends are a little bit. So I'm going to start cutting that out, plasma cutting that out roughly. And I'm sure I'm going to have to go back and forth a million times before we get that to line up perfectly. So the original floor pan had bead rolls in it to add rigidity. So to do that as well, we're doing it by hand. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm just using this chunk of I-beam as an anvil and placing it where I want my groove. I already made this one needs a little more work. Placing it where I want my groove roughly. And then I'm bringing the hammer, the auto body hammer, right there and pulling it in. There's the back side of my panel. You can see I put 3 ridges in it, and that makes it super stable. This top half is way more stable than the bottom half, but this is where you put your feet and stuff like that. So it's time just to slide it in and start welding it. It's generally something you would have the entire interior removed for, but not a restoration, just making it functional. And I'm just gonna start pushing down areas and start putting tacks down. Pretty much got all the edges tacked, so it's just a matter of kind of putting down some final welds, but it's nice and solid. All my man-made grooves lined up with the factory grooves, so that was nice. Cut one little piece short, so I had to add a little piece, but that's welding. You can add pieces on. Unlike woodwork, you can just glue pieces on the end. So it's all welded up. I just kind of ground down the welds. It is a floor pan, and then I coated it with these just the edges and where the original floor and stuff, just with some rust reformer. This is the stuff you can get in a spray can, or this is a brush on. So you brush it on and it turns it black, but everything goes black. You can see I got some on my hand last night and it turns black whether it's rusty metal or not. So whether it works or not, who knows. So now I'm just gonna go around and take some black spray paint and just spray paint all the bare metal. And then she's done and carpet ready to flop back down. All painted up. I made sure to flow it really heavy on all the seams and stuff like that. The spray paint went from the underside, but still tacky. But you can see I stood on it. Feels really good. There's no oil canning or anything else. Yep, it's all back together, including the ugly carpet. And random question for you. I get random people driving in the truck maybe once a year, once every other year, and they're always amazed because the passenger can look over and see this. And every single new person that drives in the truck asks what that button on the floor is for. Everybody knows it's emergency brake, gas pedal, but what the heck that is. If you've driven a vehicle pre-1980 in the US, USA made, you know exactly what that is. But for everybody else, if you're across the pond or something else, if you don't know what that is, I'd love to hear what you think that does for driving. It's amazing how much nicer the door shuts. I could have bought a panel for this for 60 bucks a whole floor pan, 60 bucks per side. But if you've ever played around with those can be just as much as a nightmare as building it yourself. But probably took me, figure I spent an extra 20 minutes actually forming the grooves and stuff in it, and it's great practice for panels that actually matter on auto body versus a pan that's covered up by carpet and goo from the bottom and you never actually see it. But thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one. Bye.